Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, 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 babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Happy Friday, everybody. Hi everyone. Happy almost holidays, everyone. What's going on?
These are the times where like no one wants to work. This is pure can't get an answer from
Yeah.
anybody. We're in that territory now.
I'm working, Michael. Did you see my new renderings of my building, Michael? Did you see it?
It's like that's what we're spending 500 million on. Is that
Oh, it
that
looks
what we're
pretty
doing?
good. I thought it looked pretty good. I'll give some Ted some credit. Looked good to me.
I mean, sure. I mean, is it gonna make watching the games better? I don't know. That's that was my first reaction.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
do you think Ted is sitting in his office this morning cackling because I got a new building, but you didn't? You didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that was weird yesterday to have Monumental with their brand new shiny building and breaking ground, air quotes,
Yeah.
while RFK fell apart in front of our eyes in 24 hours, essentially.
I don't know why I fell for it this time. I finally fell for it. I've been saying this for years. It's not going to happen. There's too much red tape. There's too many people that have nothing to do with this that are involved with its future. And I didn't have at the beginning of 2024, Elon Musk is going to sink it because that's essentially what happened. He and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are going to do the Doge thing once they take over in office, went through the spending bill, made it very public that there was a lot of stuff that they think shouldn't be in it. All of a sudden, the president-elect is saying, don't give him nothing. And out of the bill goes the RFK thing, even though, and I want to preface this, I didn't read the legislation. I've seen a lot of people say that it did not say what Elon said was in it, but I don't know that for sure. So I want to be like very careful. Everybody was saying, hey, Elon, there is no funding allocated to this. It's just a land transfer. And then the district has to decide what to do with it, but there's no federal dollars involved. And I haven't read the legislation to know whether that was the case or not. So I believe that, but I don't know that because Musk was tweeting that there was earmarked a lot of money, like $3 billion. I also don't believe that that's true. I believe this was a land transfer, and I don't believe there was any agreement to give the district $3 billion to build a stadium. I can't believe that would be the case, but I don't know that 100%. So that's why I don't want to go, that's the God's honest truth.
Well, no, the problem here was Musk didn't tweet it. He quote retweeted someone else with that wrong information because that's the world we live in now. And because he's the party of, I want to do my own research, didn't do his own research. And there is no $3 billion going towards the stadium. That was the specifics. And I think Mayor Bowser addressed it yesterday because she was asked about it at the Monumental event.
Yeah.
She actually praised the media for being like, thank you for calling him out so fast on that because he was blatantly wrong on that. He didn't say it, but he amplified it by saying your tax dollars shouldn't pay for this, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden it fell apart. I think that's where I've landed with you, though, is where like falling for it isn't the right word. I didn't peg Elon Musk being the one to make it fall apart. I think that's where I've landed at this point. Like we were so far up the creek that now all of a sudden I didn't anticipate it would be him to make it all fall apart. And talk about a guy that's made himself an enemy of the fans here. I mean, he's enemy number one right now, this fan base.
Yeah, we're not going to name the stadium the Tesla Dome. I mean, that's clearly
right.
not going to happen. But there's another part of this then. Okay, so that was incorrect. That wasn't true. They didn't have to pull it from the bill then because it wasn't true, but they did anyway.
Yeah.
So there was some kind of weird perception, I guess, that was going on that they yanked it. So if it wasn't true all along, why did they yank it? And only the politicians can answer that question. If they could just say, slow down here. I know what you saw, but that's actually not true with what's happening here. And we agreed to this, and there is no money involved. It's just a land transfer. DC has to do whatever they're going to do from there. And in fact, what is going to be built is a lot of it will be on private money, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to be on private money. Why didn't they just leave it in the bill then? So this is something that just unfortunately spiraled. This also, for the rest of the country, is a nothing burger for this entire bill. It has nothing to do with anything. And it's just, this is once again why I never believe it's ever going back there. They finally had me for years, all those years of people like, it's going to happen. I'm like, no, it's not. And these are the reasons why. It's always someone. And this year alone, we have a senator from Montana holding up. This could have happened months ago, holding up this process because he wants to help his constituents get a logo back that was retired. There's the Maryland senators holding it up for fighter jets. Like this is why you never, ever, or like, I don't know, even a few years ago, there was the congressional inquiry into Dan Snyder, which meant it was never going to happen while they're investigating him. And the people who are doing that are not from this jurisdiction. And years ago, you had to ask some congressman from Arizona to give the land back to Washington. They don't care. So this is why I never thought it would happen. And it's unfortunate. And now that everything's flipping over again, I don't know what's going to happen and whether this can be revived. And I guess, everybody's just got to sit back and wait and get through to the start of the next administration and go, guys, you already agreed to this. Will you hear it out? And I don't know what the answer to that's going to be.
On your first part of why did they take it out if that information was wrong, I think you and we figured this out before he was even elected, was that the ramifications of going against this incoming president, are already apparent. You have people that are bending to his will, essentially, before things were even set in stone. And so that's why I think things were taken out of this, including the RFK bill of, well, if Elon's making a big deal out of it and he's ponying up next to the president these days, we're going to go ahead and listen to him. Like, that's where I landed yesterday, because that's not new. That's just something that's been going down for the last 6 months, essentially, right? So that's where I've landed on that one. And I mean, I do see people that are like, oh, well, now, if they want to redo this again, they put it as a single issue bill or whatever. It would have been a single issue bill if it was that easy. Like, that's my response to those people. Yeah. Like,
well, in my opinion, that should be all legislation, but that's not the world we live in whatsoever.
Right.
Every bill should be a single issue. This is because one has nothing to do with the other. Whatever all these things that are in this spending bill have nothing to do with the transfer of a land, that have nothing to do with, money that's going to aid to farmers in Iowa. Like nothing, none of these things have anything to do with one another, but that's the way we've worked. I mean, in the real world, everything should be a standalone bill, but whatever, that's not the world we live in.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it's just frustrating because once again, I didn't think this would be the one that would sink the ship, so to speak. And I think the worst part about it was the rug being pulled out from under us, because 24 hours before it all fell apart, everything looked really good. And then he quote retweeted, that person with the wrong information, and it literally crumbled right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, it stinks. So Wes Moore's pumped because all of a sudden he's going, come on home, guys.
Yep.
The reality is they have to get a new stadium. They know this. They're not going to stay there in perpetuity and wait this thing out. I'm sure they're not going to do anything quickly, because I think they're going to revisit with the new administration, say, hey, guys, take a look at this. This was not what was said, at least in a tweet, about what it was. And then they got to start the process of convincing them to sign those bills and put it on the floor. And this will be a new Senate controlled by a new administration. So it was Republican led initially, but will it be now that they're in the majority? I don't know. Right. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And unfortunately, I think it's more and more likely that they're going to stay in Maryland, that they're going to build a stadium probably on the different site and then do something with Northwest Stadium. And I don't know what that will be, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. Stinks. All right. This weekend, we got a big game. Let's see. I want to start just with one thing that I was talking about with you the other day, and I was talking about with Kime yesterday. And this is 12-2 Philadelphia, 9-5 Washington. We haven't had a game like this in a while with them, where both of them have these kind of records. And yet I don't feel the juice of it, because Philadelphia is already in the playoffs and only needs one win to win the NFC East. And then I suppose if they went out, they could probably get the 1 seed. But and I talked to Kincaid yesterday about it, and he goes, wake me up when we get in the playoffs.
Yep.
And for Washington, all I keep hearing about is, well, if they just win one of the next 3, they're probably in. And if they definitively win 2 of the next 3, they're almost definitely in. And so that's why this game doesn't ultimately matter. And this is, you know me, I don't like that. Like, we haven't been here in a while like this. We also haven't beaten a team like this year. And I'm a touch surprised that maybe on their side, I kind of get it. But on our side, I'm a little stumped by the idea of, why don't we show everybody we can beat teams like this now? Because we have them at home. We've been really good at home. We had a shot at them the first time we played them. Whatever happened to, it's a show me game for where this team is, because that's what I think this actually is this weekend.
I mean, I'm with you that it's a show me game. I think people, and I shouldn't even say people, but I think fans and media know, though, that ultimately this game isn't going to decide the division. It isn't going to knock the Eagles out. It's not going to knock Washington out. I just think the stakes, I'm with you. Like, I don't like the assumption of win the next 2 and you're in. I hate that assumption. But I think at the same time, there's not as much weight behind this game specifically because of that scenario. And the fact is, neither one can knock out the other one, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like it very much feels like an exhibition of this one counts. But at the end of the day,
this will be the first of 2 that we play in a month.
That's what exactly. Like, that's what it feels like, because ultimately this doesn't have the juice of win and you're in or you lose and you're knocked out for both teams. I think that's where I've kind of landed on it.
Yeah, I think like that. Like, I still feel like this is a big deal this weekend. I think it's a big deal, more so, I think, for this team than it is for them. However, if Washington beats them, then they in all likelihood will not get the 1 seed. That somebody, either Minnesota or Detroit, will. So I would think that they value that now that it's totally in play for them. So I don't know. I like maybe they don't. I don't know. Like, but I feel like they would. And the only route to that is to win out for them and hope that both Minnesota and Detroit lose along the way. And there will be, assuming they both kind of win as they go along here, there still will be table stakes for them at the end of the season. One's going to win that division and one isn't. They're going to play each other. So I know it doesn't have the juice it should have with the records that are there. However, like, this year has been about finding out what the baseline of this new team is going to be. And I think you're going to find out how high the ceiling actually is for this group this weekend. And I'm surprised that that's just not getting a little bit more run down here. I understand from the Philadelphia perspective, they've been there, done that for a while. And all they need to do is win one of their final 2 home games, even if they lose and they win the NFC East. So it's not like, and one's against the Giants. So it's like, it's not even, I get there's no table stakes for them, but I still feel like there are for us. And I'm just a touch surprised that this hasn't ramped up this week.
I think the other side of this, though, is if you look at both teams' fan bases and both teams' media, they are both very wrapped up in themselves as of late. Like, I heard you talking about it with Kincaid yesterday, where they've won, however many games in a row, 10 games in a row, and their fan base is still fickle about what their offense is doing. Yes. And AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. And I'll even flip it back to this fan base, though. We here in Washington are worried about how Jaden Daniels look. We want to know how the defense is going to look in the second half. John Allen returning, eventually in a week or so too. Like, that takes a little bit of the juice out of it. I think, once again, this one's going to be about, can you look respectable against this opponent? I think they will. They were last time, for the most part, until it fell apart in the fourth quarter. I think everyone here, at least on the Washington side of things, is just self-aware that team is better than this one. And if they win, great. But I think people here are going, no panic if they do lose, because that's the expectation as well.
Yeah, probably. They're also I think they're getting a little entitled up there, because
I agree.
They're acting, like that what's going on here isn't that big of a deal. Like, let me read you a stat this weekend. Jalen Hurts, 5th quarterback since 1950 to have 3 10-plus game win streaks, with John Elway, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Pat Mahomes. And they talk about him like he's That's what they say about him.
Right.
Nick Sirianni has the 6th highest win percentage ever for any coach. And they're like, that guy, he's a pain in the butt. Like, so they talk about these guys. So they are, I got to tell you, like, Because I think I started with Kincaid yesterday and I go, you guys are 12-2. What in the world is the problem here?
Yeah. Right.
Why is it every week there's a problem? Like if we were 12-2, trust us, and maybe it'd be first time, long time for us doing something like that. I don't think there'd be anybody nitpicking it the way that you guys go after this, but they've become accustomed to this. So much so that I got to tell you, like their energy is off. That they're just kind of like, we're 12-2. But I don't know, guys. I don't think we can get to the finish line for this reason, this reason, this reason. And that guy looks funny at that guy all the time. They're not friends. Like it's.
Well, it's not
I envy it and don't all at the same time. I don't. How could you be 12-2 and be like the world's falling?
It's not only that. I went off about this on Monday about how the whole AJ Brown thing with Jalen Hurts blew up last week, and they started acting like the media had concocted some kind of story. And I'm like, guys, you're the ones that made this a story. It was nobody's fault but your own. Like
Brandon Graham said it.
Yeah.
The media didn't say it. Brandon Graham said it.
And they're acting like they were vindicated or something. And I'm like, no, you guys are the ones that made this storyline. You're the reason why everyone's talking about it. It's your fault. It's no one else's fault. And so, yeah, the energy is off. The fact that team is 12-2 and fueled by hate is essentially what I've said is just really weird. It's weird.
It is weird. All right, so on to the game a little bit here. First things first, this is a very different Jaden this time. He was beat up still from the rib injury. The team was really beat up last time around. I walked in, I remember that week going, guys, don't freak out if we go 0-2 because it's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in a 4-day span. We need to buy really, really badly. We'd be in the playoffs now if they knocked off Pittsburgh in that game and somehow ended up winning that game. But Jaden has looked completely different, since really that mini bye. It really started to turn against Dallas, where he started to look like him. In the last 2 weeks, he's been what we had early in the season. And last week, honestly, I think it's under the radar how unbelievably good he was in that game. So I think they're seeing a different player this time. And I'm very interested, just from our perspective, all right, maybe the table stakes aren't where you would think they would be for 12-2 versus 9-5. However, I want to see him in a game like this where he's healthy again, late in a season where he's had all the experience. It's the second time around against this group. I'm very intrigued by his play specifically this weekend.
No, 100%. I think having this guy be unleashed against a team for a second time is interesting to say the least, because he doesn't seem like the type that's going to, kind of have a gotcha moment against him 2 different times either. And you're right, it was different Jaden. That was a short week, rib injury, all of that stuff. Remember, that was the most concerning game of the season for him. Remember, he couldn't complete passes. They were like dropping at guys' feet in the fourth quarter. It was a legitimate concern of how hurt he was. So I'm with you. It's a different Jaden this time. And look, I mean, here's kind of the other caveat, and it's because this team is led by Jaden Daniels. And the one knock on them is that they haven't beaten one of these winning teams this season. They've taken care of business against the teams below them in the standings for the most part. Yes, they lost the Cowboys game, but they kind of and I get it. It's year one of this rebuild. And I'm not trying to incite that I'm not impressed by what's happened this year. I am. They've beaten who they're supposed to, but it would be nice to have one of these under their belt by the end of the season, because they've just had enough opportunities where it was the Steelers, it was the Eagles the first time around, it was the Ravens, right? It would be nice to win one of these. You know, that's not a team that's got the same record.
I know nobody's counting the Bengals or the Cardinals on the road. I think those were good wins. And I think now where the Cardinals are about 500 and the Bengals just had a bad year. I think that those count. To me, those count, but whatever. Anyway, there are a couple other things here. The passing game in the red zone offense without Zach Ertz is a problem. And if he does not play, and it's still an if, and I'll know more today, but he's in concussion protocol. He wasn't off of it. I know he was on the field yesterday in a limited form, but he's not out of it yet. So he hasn't been cleared to go yet. It's a big deal. Even Cliff Kingsbury admitted that yesterday. It's a really big deal, especially in the red zone. He's become kind of a security blanket for Jaden down there. They're going to have to figure something out. And I don't know that they replicate him. People just go, well, turn Sinan into that. He hasn't played that role at all this year. He's really been a roving fullback, more like Juszczyk. I don't know that they have this, and I don't think you're throwing the ball to Bates all the time. So I think this is a really big deal if they don't have Ertz. I think that's going to be That's going to be a problem that I'm going to be interested to see how they deal with. And then they got to do better with Jalen Carter. Like and maybe that's just and Kingsbury called him one of the best players in the league. I agree. He has emerged. I remember when they got him last year and he felt like 9 or something like that in the draft. And I went, oh God, like that's the worst. Like he could have been the number 1 pick in the draft, but because of some off-field stuff, there were concerns about him. He fell to 9, but as a talent, he was the number 1 pick in the draft. And look at him now. And he is as good a defensive tackle as you're going to find in the NFL right now. He's as disruptive a defensive tackle as I've ever seen for any period of time. He's scary. And you can't run at him. And it's hard to run away from him. So I'll be interested to see how they handle that. And the other thing that I don't like that's going on this week with him is Sam Cosmi's missed time because of an illness. Tyler Biadasz missed last week because of an illness. There's something going around. And the last thing we need is a marginalized offensive line against this guy.
Yeah, this is the one where there is no answer for him. Like there's nothing they can really do. And this is where, like, I'm sure some Philly fans are looking at Jaden being like, God, how are we going to deal with that guy, for the next 5 to 10 years if he's healthy? And I look at Jalen Carter and I'm thinking the same thing. Like, this is year 2. Year 1 was a little rough for him, right? Like, he wasn't that disruptive. He had his moments. Now he's, full Aaron Donald. Like, that's where we've landed now here, where he's that damn good. And there is no answer for that. So I'm with you. It'll be interesting to see how they just try to negate him, because there's no way you can go up against him mano a mano.
No, it's going to be tough. On Hurts, and I think this is part of this is a narrative around the league, actually. Everyone respects him, knows he's a winner because he wins a ton, will put his body on the line all the time. But I don't think they look at him and go, he does the Jaden things. And this is where he gets kind of knocked for it. Probably not fairly, because it's not his fault they have a really good roster, but he still has to execute the plays and they win. That said, when you watch him, and this is why I think the coaches are always like bristle when you bring him up as like a really good quarterback. Like, he has 1 interception in their 10-game win streak. The reason why is because he doesn't actually put the ball in harm's way very often. And if his first read's there, he's actually really good. If it's not, he typically, at least this year, doesn't really extend plays to throw the ball. He just takes off or he chucks it out of bounds. So he just lives to see another day, which is probably the smartest thing to do because they have the best run game in the NFL. And if nothing else, they're a 4-down team every single series. And why take chances? And he doesn't. He just kind of doesn't. So the 1 interception stat in 10 games is a really good one, but it's him limiting himself, throwing the ball into harm's way. That's all it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he has to be like this because he does have such a good team around him. He can't be the weakness. So I feel like he has kind of developed himself to be the guy that's like, I'm not going to screw up. But he's not a game manager by any means. He can make some really difficult throws sometimes. I think he went into this season and he went into this win streak, honestly, of being, you know what? I might not look like the best quarterback in the world, but I'm also not going to be the reason that we lose any of these games. And lo and behold, 10 games later, he is not the reason that they're losing. And he's also not getting the credit, though, to running the offense the way that he has either. I'm with you. Like, I think the reason maybe the Philly fan base and other media and fan bases don't bring him up is because he is so safe with the ball. I think maybe they kind of think he's a little bit more of a game manager, but I just think it's actually more of a mindset of, I don't want to be the one to screw this up. And he's done a good job at doing that.
Well, listen to these numbers, because he's going to cross 3,000 yards passing probably this weekend. He's only like 100 yards away from it. 18 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, almost 70% completion percentage, 14 touchdown runs. He leads the NFL with 14 touchdown runs. It'll be the most rush TDs in a single season for a quarterback is 15. That's last year, Josh Allen and him. So he's got 32 touchdowns, and there isn't a single person talking about him as the MVP. Not a single person talking about him as the MVP. They've won 10 in a row. They're 12-2. They might be the 1 seed. He's got 32 touchdowns and very few turnovers. And I haven't heard one person go, I think he's the MVP of the league.
I mean, part of that problem is who he's handing the ball off to. I mean, like, it is
32 touchdowns, 14 running. Like, not the MVP. Like,
but nobody is saying Jalen Hurts is the reason that they are 12-2. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
And what have we seen now over the last month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks? It's been, oh, the game's close in the fourth quarter. All right, hand it off to that number 26 guy, and he's going to finish off whoever we're playing, and that's what's happened. Like, he hasn't had those clutch moments either because Saquon ices the game every single time.
People are like mad at him too because he gets all those 1-yard touchdown runs because they do the tush push on the goal line, and they're like, Saquon would easily be the MVP if they handed it off to him. He'd have 8 more touchdowns.
Right, exactly.
Last thing on him, he admitted this, so we're gonna watch this. He has a broken finger on his non-throwing hand and says he can't carry the ball. He said it out loud. I can't carry the ball. And you saw this last week. If you watch him, he only held it in his right hand and would not transfer the ball because he can't hold it in his left hand. So, thanks for telling us. Glad to know. Dante, Dorrance, Duran, just so you know, that's going on right now. All right.
That's the old, if he gets tackled, those linemen are going to, have a little extra squeeze on the hand on the way down is what's going to happen there.
I'll just tell you this much. You guys might not have the table stakes I do, but if we win on Sunday, I will be freaking out in the booth. I'm just telling you that.
That's not a shock.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah.
All right, be right back. Bram wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
Hey, it sounds like your mic, by the way, is the mic on the computer, not on your hand, by the way. It just sounds a little bit more hollow than normal.
It's saying that it's taking this.
Okay. All right. Maybe it's just sounding different. That's all. Okay. Either way, you sound clear. It sounds a little bit different, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Well, you people on YouTube can make your own choices. All right. All right. Welcome back. Let's go through the slate. Yes. Texans are going to beat the Chiefs this weekend, Callow. This is going to happen. Saturday game, right? Saturday, right? Because they're playing all the Chiefs. They're making the Chiefs play on Christmas too. Texans are going to beat the Chiefs this weekend. I know Mahomes is practicing. Texans played really well last week. First time in a while. They played really well. Their defense has these moments. Chiefs offense hasn't been that great. I'm calling upset here. Texans knock off the Chiefs tomorrow.
Absolutely not. I've called the Texans frauds all season long. The Chiefs have the black magic voodoo, whatever we want to call it, whatever they're doing to win. No, this is the meeting of two of my takes for the entire season. I will not call this. Patrick Mahomes, full participant in practice all week, by the way. He's perfectly fine. No, the Chiefs will use the black magic and they'll win this game 13-12 because that's just how the season has gone for them. Absolutely not.
Texans 20-17. Texans. Chiefs finally lose a close one this weekend. Let's see. This one I couldn't believe. You've seen the bizarre Lamar stat
I haven't. Pittsburgh? What's that?
He's only played them once at home.
What?
Yeah. So he was hurt a couple of years.
Okay.
They had the 1 seed a couple of times, so they sat him and didn't play him. He's only played them once at home in his career. This will be the second time. Obviously, there's things on the line. This is a reminder of stop putting these rivalry games at the very, very end of the year because invariably it doesn't matter for one of the two teams. Twice, it was either 2 or 3 times they pulled him because there was no playoff game for them. So he didn't play in the games. There were a couple times he was hurt, but there were 3 times he didn't play because of seeding and because there was nothing they could gain from it. NFL, stop making this happen. This is a great rivalry. I want to see, as Mike Tomlin calls him, Mr. Jackson play Pittsburgh twice a year. So we get one, though, this weekend, and it's huge because Baltimore, while they'll probably make the playoffs, are no complete certainty here. And Pittsburgh, suddenly, the division's back in play. So this is a huge, huge game this weekend. And I don't really have a take other than to say Philadelphia dominated Pittsburgh last week. And I mean bad, really bad. And if it shook them at all, and Tomlin seems unshakable, but if it shook them, then I like Baltimore this week.
No, I'm with you. I've landed on Baltimore for this game because of how Pittsburgh lost last week. They were just so dominated by the Eagles. And oh, by the way, guess what the Ravens can do too? run the ball really, really well with their running back and their quarterback. The formula is right there. And with, Russ, I haven't seen Russ be able to have a big comeback like that either. Like he did not look good last week trying to come back, especially without Pickens. So I understand that that's a factor, but missing one wide receiver shouldn't have you lose like that to that team. I'm with you. I think you go Baltimore here mainly because of how Pittsburgh lost last week.
I normally wouldn't pay too close attention to the Atlanta Giants game, but we are playing them next week, and it is Michael Penix's debut. And I don't know, I'm very inclined to see what he looks like, but I assume Atlanta's going to win no matter what because the Giants are terrible. So, give me Atlanta, but I'll be watching very closely. More over the. Well, I'm not going to do this. I didn't do this week. Next week, I'll have to do this. Are they running everything the same, just hoping for better execution from Penix? That's really the big question here. And so we'll get the first hint of this weekend when they take on the Giants.
Yeah, I think that's a valid question. And especially, I think this has been the year of the quarterback depth charts playing themselves out in front of everybody. Like I kind of referenced it on my show earlier this week. One of the guys that, we thought would be way better was Drew Lock, right? With the Giants. Ultimately, we came to find out the reason he wasn't playing was because he hasn't gotten a good grasp on this offense, and we saw him play, and he was terrible, right? Then what happened this past weekend? Everyone wanted to at least see Sam Howell with the Seahawks. We got that opportunity. He sucked. And so what I had kind of equated this to is I think the quarterback rooms really around the country, I think it's not as much about guys not being benched as it is about guys taking the job. And this is how I've landed with Penix, I think. Kirk has been so bad, but I also have to think Penix has had to have looked good in practice for Raheem Morris to do this after a win, because that's the other side of this. And I think was like a little bit odd. I mentioned to you, it felt like an NHL move where you fire the head coach before you play the Predators, one of the worst teams in the league, right? This is one of those moves where Penix has had to have looked good in practice. So I have to assume no matter what they're going to run, he's got a good grasp on things, or at least a good enough grasp on things to look better than Cousins this Sunday.
So the Sam Howell thing. So I remember this with Patrick Ramsey. They shell-shocked him.
Yeah.
Ron Spurriered Howell. I don't know if he's going to recover. Like he took such a beating last year that they threw him out there and he was PTSD'd. Like it was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Sam, but oh boy, that was not ready for prime time.
Right.
He wasn't prepared for that. Let's see. Busted up Lions versus bad news Bears. Boy, I want to go out on a limb because the Lions defense is so bad. I mean, for injuries, just injuries. But I don't trust the Bears at all. And I assume the Lions are going to win. But I bet it's ugly because it's a division game and the Lions are so beat up on defense that Caleb maybe makes a few plays against them and suddenly this game's close. So I'll reluctantly pick Detroit because I have no trust in the Bears whatsoever. Right? They haven't won since before the Hail Mary, right? They haven't won.
Yep, correct. Yep, exactly.
I'll take the Lions, but it's not going to be easy, obviously. It's not.
I'll go Lions here. I'm not going to overthink this one. Did you happen to hear the speech? It's not the speech, but the hit that Dan Campbell did on Detroit Sports Radio.
Yes, it was great.
It was fantastic. I played it because I think it's comparable to our fan base here. Where he talks about eating moldy bread because you got to be reminded of where you came from. I don't know. That's a dude that just has his finger on the pulse of a team. They'll be fine. They're going to beat a team like the Bears. I'm with you. It might be ugly, but ain't no way they're losing to Chicago. That team is a little bit too good for me.
Everybody, you need to be where you belong. He belongs there, because that fan base is like, yes, finally someone. If he was doing this in New York, I don't think it would go over that well.
No, not at all. Yeah.
He's in the right place for him. Let's see. The Bengals are very much alive now because Denver lost last night. And they were putting up all these things like all Denver has to do is win one more game. They got to play them in Cincinnati next week. Cleveland's not going with Jameis. They're going with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Give me the Bengals here to win because they are still technically alive. And things could get real weird at the end of the year, because if they knock off Denver, Denver has to play Kansas City at the end of the season, and maybe they'll sit everybody and maybe they won't. So Denver might be the flop at the end of the season now. It's lining up for that to be a possibility here. Give me the Bengals to win at Cleveland and make next week very interesting with the Broncos.
I'm with you here as well. Not to mention that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have looked fantastic over the last 2 months, essentially. They've been the best duo in the league, essentially. And yeah, I'm with you. This is also just the will to win here. Cleveland knows that they've been finished for a long time. Bengals can finally, put themselves in a good position to make the playoffs. I'm with you. Cincinnati wins this one.
Red Zone Specials, Tennessee Colts, Jags Raiders. No comment for any of them. Those games stink. Did you read the Woody article in The Athletic? So we're asking the Jets to do us a solid here and knock off the Rams. That would be very helpful for our cause. I doubt that will happen, but who knows? The Jets showed up last week. Devontae Adams had a big game, so who knows? But the Woody article, now we've lived this where we've gotten, every once in a while, you get the bomb article that came from outer space, and you're like, it's that bad? And apparently, it's that bad. So much so that they didn't make a trade because of a Madden rating. The two teenage sons have a lot of say in personnel decisions. Woody says Donald Sterling likes stuff to players in the locker room, then has to apologize, floats out things to see how people will react, but they take him seriously because he's the owner and sounds like he's serious. Wow. That was something, and I believe every word of it.
Believe every word of it, and the fact that his kids are acting the way that they do around the team. It's one thing to suggest to your dad who owns the team to make moves or whatever, to be in the locker room and giving out game balls after Rodgers is doing a speech and stuff. That's I can't go into too much more detail, but you and I have been around sports so much that that gives me the most icky feeling that somebody thinks that they're on the same level as these pro athletes and thinks that they're a part of the team. Essentially, I was getting just icky feelings reading that whole story, because you also had there was a piece in that article that said his kids would come in the locker room with other people, other women or other girls or whatever, and his wife, and they would say critical things to the players in the locker room after games. That is insane. I can't believe it goes on. And now, you saw it, this got buried because of the article yesterday, but the first rumblings of Garrett Wilson wanting out were coming back earlier this week. And then that article dropped. He's not going to be the first one. If this is what's going down, which I 100% believe, why would they make this stuff up? And it's kind of too good to make up. He's not going to be the only one asking for a trade out of there. Well, that is ridiculous what's going on.
This is for next week, but I would like him.
Yeah, well, yes, obviously. Yeah, me too.
The price is going to be high because you get him under contract for a couple more years, which he'll probably want an extension if you trade for him. But call me really, really super interested in that one. If he's going to demand to be out, pairing him with Terry, let's go.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's go. All right. Panthers can take out the Cardinals here. They've been playing a lot better. I know they got whooped last week, but they've been playing a lot better in recent weeks, and they're at home. So they could do us a favor here and just kind of remove that as a possibility. And I think that's a distinct possibility that could easily happen this weekend.
We need both coin flips to go on this one. We need the Panthers to be good, and we need the Cardinals to be bad. That's essentially how this one lands for me.
Bills are going to bust up the Patriots. That's just so no more comment needed for that. Niners and Dolphins, better luck next year, guys, because you have two teams that probably should be in the playoffs, and neither one of you are going to be. So good day, sirs. Enjoy. You, Wunderkind and Shanahan, can go have a drink somewhere and talk it out and play Mahjong. We'll see you guys back in 2025. This is a good one and an important one. Vikings get the Seahawks. The 1 seed is sitting right there for Minnesota now. And with Detroit all beat up, if Minnesota wins out, they'll get the 1 seed by the end of all of this. They're probably rooting pretty hard for us, too, to knock Philadelphia off and give them another loss. Seahawks are suddenly going to be hanging on by a thread if they lose here. They're at home. They need this. Boy, do they need Geno to play. Listen, I trust Minnesota now. I've now seen them on tape a few times, and it's real. It's not a fraud. I buy them. And if Geno's busted up, the Seahawks will not win. Give me Minnesota to knock off Seattle up there.
I'm with you here. I give me Minnesota as well. I just don't trust Seattle. I don't trust Seattle, and I don't trust Geno because Geno's bad games have been really, really bad. He looks really pedestrian in games where he's uncomfortable. Give me the Vikings to make him uncomfortable and win this one as well.
And then the last one is this. Things get weird if Dallas does beat Tampa. And considering Dallas showed up last week, they haven't really hung it up. They are trying. Tampa looked really good against the Chargers. We really want Tampa to win that division because we don't want to end up in some kind of weird tiebreak. Obviously, we control our own destiny. We win this weekend or specifically against the Falcons. This is kind of a moot point. But if Dallas were to go and beat them, suddenly things get a little uncomfortable for the last couple of weeks if we lose to the Eagles.
No, exactly. And Dallas, I didn't think Dallas was going to fall apart, mainly because we started hearing the reports last week that Jerry is considering keeping McCarthy if he has a solid finish to the season. So here we are.
Oh, Dallas I think they should keep him. I mean, that's another thing for next week. I don't even think it's in question. You're all in on Dak. Why would you change the coach?
Right. And so this is where he's got this team actually playing really hard because they want to finish strong. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Dallas knocks off Tampa. But Tampa's also been one of those inconsistent teams this season so far.
I'm going to pick Tampa, but that's a reluctant one, too. I think Dallas could easily knock them off. Yep. All right, be right back. Brad wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. A few minutes left here on a Friday. Well. Alex Ovechkin breaks his leg, but it's not broken for long, my friend. So he'll be back when? Soon?
So Spencer Carberry did not rule out Sunday. Yes, the Caps play at 5:00 on Sunday. That's a fun one. They play the Kings.
Good job, NHL. Your scheduling is amazing.
Have a lot of things to say. Oh, it's also not their first one. They play 5:00 next Sunday too. Thanks, guys. When it comes to
leading into the Commanders Falcons, great, good one.
Yeah. Great. I'm thrilled over here about that. Spencer Carberry did not rule him out playing on Sunday. That would be against the Kings. That would be at home. But they also play the Bruins on Monday as well. So would you put him in on Sunday to have him play back-to-back games?
No.
I kind of doubt that. So to me, I think it's either going to be against Boston on Monday or then they hit this holiday break where they don't play again until the following Saturday. They play in Toronto. Something tells me he's going to be playing in Toronto. I don't know if it's going to be his first game back, but he will be playing the Maple Leafs next Saturday. So I don't think he's going to play against Boston, or I don't think he's going to play Sunday. I do think if he does play, it's going to be against Boston or after the break against the Maple Leafs. That's where I've landed.
This could be hell week, though. They lost the first two during this stretch earlier on the road. They haven't played since they lost to Chicago, but they got 3 and 4 games, 3 games, 4 days starting tonight. Carolina's good. And then they'll get, you mentioned the Kings at home. Carolina's home too, right? That's tonight.
Yeah, it's tonight. Yep.
Carolina's home tonight, Kings, and then they play Boston Monday. This is a rough little stretch here, like where I know we've been feeling the good vibes and everything, but the hockey season can get long. They need to get through these next few days because they get another little long break once they get through this. But they need to get through this, hopefully with a couple of wins.
You'd hope that you win you'd hope that you win 2 of the next 3. You know how I operate with this. Carolina is going to be the toughest one of these 3 games. So let's see what they do tonight. See if they can put themselves in a good position. If they win this one and then they just need to win one of the next 2 to make sure that it goes to a 2 out of 3 scenario heading into the break.
Beat the Kings at home. Beat the Kings at home in an afternoon game. You beat the Kings at home. Yeah.
That should be the one that they definitely win. And Boston's not Boston as they've been before. So they should be able to beat Boston. But if they put themselves in a good position tonight and not have to win 2 in a row, because this team on back-to-backs, clearly it's a little bit of an issue, especially with what happened earlier this week. Win this one against Carolina tonight. You put yourself in a really good position.
Before we go, because this is just triggering for you. Look, the Hoyas and the Terps are both 9-2. I just want to point it out. Because I've noticed. I also want to say I noticed the Wizards won last night. Oh. And I also saw a very nice dunk by Bilal Coulibaly. So, Ted, I did see that. I'm aware that you won a game last night. I actually happened to be in Georgetown in the middle of the day and saw the Hornets getting on the bus going over to the stadium yesterday. Yeah, it was very exciting. Anyway, Hoyas and Terps, 9-2. Callow, you buying in?
You already know the answer to that. Call me in February. Call me in February.
CJ's pumped about the Hoyas, by the way, as you might imagine. They beat Syracuse, which doesn't really mean much. Terps actually play them this weekend. I don't know why, but they do. It must be some holiday thing. They do play them this weekend. But then Georgetown killed Creighton, probably in front of 8 people, but they killed. It did happen. It's on the record. It did occur. So good for Tapscott and company. The Hoyas are becoming respectable again. That's the good news, because for a few years there, that was one of the worst things on earth. To have a program like that be that terrible, I'm glad they're at least back to being respectable again.
Yeah, like I said, call me in February.
Yeah,
I know. I'm not buying in.
Don't care.
I'm just not buying in yet. Rightfully so.
Not buying in. Don't care. You don't care. You don't care either way. If I did call you in February about it, you'll be like, call me in March. That's all you're going to do.
You're right. You're right. I would say that. Correct. Exactly.
All right, everybody. Have a nice weekend. Brand Watch the Show is on 630 Sports Capital.